Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first live Frequency and Rain video and audio recording session. We're on episode 4. This is going to be a special one. We're going to do just a little recap / Q&A questions type format. Anything you guys want to ask, feel free. I'm going to try and keep it limited to about 2 topics, that being frequencies and a little bit of like the government conspiracy, seeing as that kind of goes in with them. Depending on how many people we get and whether or not all of this works out perfect. So I've also got streaming set up on Facebook and YouTube as well. So if anybody wants to watch on those services, you guys can feel free to. Don't know why. Sec, guys. All right, Facebook should be live now. Let me refresh. Awesome. That's good. Facebook rolling. YouTube is good. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Bear with me with this being the first live. Just working out some of the kinks. Should be good to go. Yes. All right, everybody. The first Q&A live episode of Frequency and Rain is live on Facebook. I've been going for about 5 minutes on YouTube. I'm your host, Devlin Johnson, focusing on frequencies as well as the government conspiracies, et cetera, that tie into them. Anybody who ends up joining, feel free to ask questions. Feel free to comment. Let me know if you've tried any of the methods or any of the stuff that I've talked about in any of the previous episodes. Maybe you guys have your own personal experiences that you'd like to share. Yeah, let's just interact and have a good next, 30, 45 minutes, and we'll call it a night. Sorry, guys, I'm still learning this UI, as well as the just for all of it. Okay, so it looks like got everything there. Sorry, multitasking between 3 different streaming services at once is very interesting. You guys notice a drop in frame rates or anything, please, especially in my friends, comment, let me know what's up so I can try and correct those. All right, that should fix that there. We're just chilling, doing a thing. All right, y'all, I'll probably take just a couple more minutes to wait and see if anybody joins the live for a couple questions or a little Q&A before I get started on tonight's topics. And I'll probably end up just chopping this part out. If anybody is in right now that I can't see, I'm very sorry. But I'll probably end up just editing this out so that I can take care of the fact that it has been like 10 minutes. I'm not sure how that works quite yet, but anyways, guys, let's get started. I just I started off the first episode kind of surface level with frequencies with my first guest, Connor. Big round of applause to him. He was the first guest and the first guinea pig that I had whenever I started this venture. So it took a lot of effort for him to come out here and make that happen. So I just want to give him a shout out real quick, as well as a shout out to all my other guests. Thank you guys so much for making this a dream come true. And with all of that said, let's dive in. Honestly, let's just start with what initiated the first frequency change throughout the world, which would have been back in 1939 by the Roman Catholic Church. They instituted that the entirety of all Western music be tuned to a standard of 440 hertz instead of 432. And to articulate that just a little bit more, if you were to strike a tuning fork to tune the A4, which is the A over C4, middle C, you would get a resonant note of 432 hertz. That's what Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, Chopin, all of the greatest composers of all times essentially would have tuned all of their acoustic instruments to. 432 is one of the most resonant frequencies in the entire universe. It's also correlative with our physical universe in the sense that I don't recall whether it's the circumference of the sun, our moon, the earth, etc., and or in correlation to the speed of light. However, to be honest, now that we are live, we can just do all this stuff in real time. See if I can just find the best definition of this. Perfect. So exactly, the speed of light is going to be 432 squared to make 186,282 miles per second through a vacuum. So 432 hertz is exactly the speed of light. If you take the number 432 and you square it, you're going to get the speed of light. I'm pretty sure that the circumference of the Earth is also right around 432,000 miles. It's 24, which means that if we square this, yes, the equatorial circumference of the Earth is 43,200 miles. It's also a multiple of 72, which, if we know anything about 72, 72 would be 3 days, which means that it's also correlative with our days, our time, etc. There's so many things that 432 is resonant with, and it's just interesting that the Roman Catholic Church was the spearhead behind wanting to change the entirety of all music from a nice resonant frequency that resonates with everything in the universe to something that causes the 741 hertz frequency, or the devil's frequency, to be the F sharp over that C4. And it's the only tuning that actually gives you that. It's not 440.01, 440.02, none of that stuff. Actually, straight up 440 is what will give you that. Richard, we're discussing frequencies and the government cover-ups, as well as possible lies, secrets, or conspiracies that may have led to them and or have led to symptoms of stuff that happened in the past. Right now, I'm just starting at the beginning, so you caught it just in time with the change from 432 hertz as Western music standard tuning to 440 hertz in 1939 by the Roman Catholic Church, or the Vatican, if you will, which is also strange because they have a lot of historical text. They have a lot of historical data that is locked away from the public that you, even as a high government official, may or may not have access to. It's kind of interesting that when you start to break down frequencies as well, and you take into account things like the double slit experiment, which, if you're not familiar, is how we found out that particles don't behave only like particles. They actually do behave like waves, but only when you add an observer to the equation, which means quite literally you have to add another consciousness to the particle experiment while you're doing it, and or create your own environment where you can goodness, sorry guys, first live and I'm having a brain fart. Goodness. Recreate, where you can recreate that same environment so that you can see it for yourself. And essentially, if you know what a particle is, you're talking about electrons, protons, or neutrons. And if you just take an electron, proton, or a neutron and you shoot it through a slit, and nobody's around to watch it or anything like that, it will behave just like a particle and it'll go through that slit. However, if you add a camera or another observer, that particle will then diffuse into a wave and basically condense itself down into a flat wave particle, and it will behave just like a wave and create a form of light. The way light works is as you shoot light at something, preferably white light. Most light that we use to see our entire reality is white light because it comes from the sun. It goes in through your eyes or a lens. It then hits your cones or your rods, and then refracts off of them like a mirror into your cones, much like a pyramid or a prism, and then refracts an image, a holographic image, onto the inside lens of your retina, and that is how you observe your three-dimensional world or reality through your sensory organ, that being your eyes. Whenever you think about light as waves and waves in that format, or even in the sense of like dropping a ball on a lake of water and the ripple that would go out from it, light travels in much the same manner. That's why the speed of light's relevant to 432 hertz. So once you've pardon me, got a foundational understanding of light and waves and particles like that, you start getting into like manifestation and how your thoughts actually become things, because your brain operates on alpha, beta, theta, and delta waves. And those can shift throughout during the day, but that's not really relevant unless you're talking about dream sleep and stuff of that nature. However, when you bring manifestation into the equation, as well as the fact that we now know that just from thinking something, our thoughts or our intentions can have effects on particles or waves thousands, if not millions, if not billions of miles away from us in this universe. Now you have to ask yourself a question: how come they changed everything from 432 to 440 if 432 hertz was one of the most resonant frequencies in the universe? And why was it spearheaded by the Roman Catholic Church? So we have a church religious entity who's spearheading the change of all music for the entire world by a number of 8 hertz in order to produce the devil's frequency, or an evil frequency, if you will, the most dissonant frequency known to man, 741, as the F sharp over all of your octaves. Well, when you start putting 2 and 2 together, common sense would dictate. Let me pose a hypothetical for you. If you're sitting in your car or you're driving your car and you put on your favorite song on the radio and you start listening to it and it's like a really good song. Let's say it's something from your high school prom and all of your friends were dancing to the song and you had like an inside moment core memory. If you introduce just a little tiny bit of static to that song, what's going to happen? What's your initial response as a human who is just jamming out? Something like the Emperor's New Groove is what I like to use. You're going to throw off the Emperor's Groove. You're going to immediately get irritable. You're going to get upset. That's kind of a simple assimilation to make. However, all I'm trying to say is that your music and the music you choose to subject yourself to has a change on your emotions. Well, if that's the case and thoughts become things, that means that we can send stuff out, which means the universe can send stuff back. So send and receive. So when you're listening to music that's tuned to 440 hertz instead of 432, I'm starting to theorize and or come to the conclusion that, first off, I just want to state that your mental illnesses are very real and valid. I will never invalidate a mental illness because they're being caused by an entity that you're not even aware of. However, I do want to state that it could quite literally just be the music that we're listening to and have been listening to and have been subjected to against our will, in a sense, our entire lives. Because if I was, a 3, 4, 5-year-old strapping lad and you walked up to me as a child and said, "Hey, Devlin, this song that you like on the radio so much is going to kill you as you get older. You probably shouldn't listen to it," and had the proof and data to back it up, even as a 5-year-old, like you could probably tell me something like that. I would be able to make a logical decision at that point in time. I'm not saying everybody's 5-year-old should be told things like that. Point being is that's kind of messed up, and if we weren't made aware of it, that's kind of what the point of this podcast is. Hence the name Frequency and Rain. I think that frequencies are one of the most important topics that we could talk about right now in the state of the Earth, because our entire universe is governed by them. If you think something, the universe is going to take that thought and the intentions behind it, and then it's going to break it down however the universe does that, and it's going to send you back a frequency that's either resonant or dissonant based off intent and how much effort you put into having that thought, what you felt when you had that thought. There's so many factors, and it kind of seems to like it's going to get a little complicated, but if you really think about it, it's stuff that you're doing inherently and subconsciously all day. So when you're driving and you think, "Oh man, I gotta get to work, I'm gonna be late, but I gotta go get this coffee because I have this caffeine addiction, and if I don't have this coffee, I'm not gonna be able to work efficiently. And if I can't work efficiently, I might lose my job. And man, if I lose my job, then I might not be able to pay my bills, and my family's gonna suffer." You're causing so much dissonance within yourself that it's gonna be hard not to have anxiety with thoughts like that, right? And if you think to yourself ever, "Why do I even have these thoughts?" Or maybe you've become a little more heightened in your vibration and you can have those thoughts and be aware enough to kind of just either tune them out, or even so aware that you can just let them be those thoughts and then feel those thoughts and then let them go. But that's a little further down the road for just this surface level Q&A, or explanation, I should say. There's just a certain aspect to it that I think is applicable to everybody, and that's why I'm making this so relevant and why I decided to do the first Q&A and review on frequencies. Um, the other thing is that a lot of people, when it comes to mental illnesses or whatnot, and like I said, I don't want to invalidate anybody or make anyone feel like that, but I think there's a stigma stuck around. And when I mentioned this in one of my previous podcasts, that if someone's going through a hard time and they try to confide in their friends, they say, "Hey man, I'm going through a rough time. Can you talk to me?" You're going to respond as a good friend and ask them what's going on. And after they confide in you, you're probably going to give them some sort of generic response. I don't mean to obviously say this is a constant, or an absolute, but you're going to tell them something like, "Just try to see a different side of things. Um, try to look at it from a different perspective, etc. And for the most part, people who are either seeking validation and or not seeking whatever it is the message is that you're trying to give them, they're going to meet you with resistance and hesitation, and you're probably going to get the response that's stigmatic. And that's, if I could have just tried it from this different perspective and been happy, or I could have just looked at it from this amazing God sent way that you're telling me to look at it and just have not been depressed. Don't you think I would have done that already? And I think that that's an okay thought to have. Personally, if you're going to have that thought, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, nor will I tell you how to speak to your friends or respond to their responses. But I'm telling you now that after changing my thought process, after coming across this knowledge and establishing a devout belief system, yeah, it was that easy. And I have a couple of other extenuating factors too that apply to making it that easy due to chemical imbalances as well as vitamin deficiencies or whatnot in the body. But we're doing more and more research every day that says that most humans, regardless of how much variety is in their diet or how organic and vegan or vegetarian and clean you eat, most humans out there in some way, shape, or form have a vitamin or a mineral deficiency. That's ridiculous. I don't understand how the entirety of the public can go their whole lives being fed by a government who claims to know what's best for them, who created the food pyramid, who instilled in us or programmed, if you will. That's a whole nother podcast in and of itself. You don't watch TV channels, you watch TV programs. It's brainwashing in a sense. It's also a frequency beamed to your television. Um, it seems like there's nothing we can do to get away from this. They've got all of this stuff so tied up in everything that we do in our daily lives that it's so underneath the fine webbings of this fabric that they've woven to all of us that it's created such a cognitive dissonance that everyone just would label it as hoo-ha or whatever and call you crazy for thinking like that. And then they're going to go home with that anxiety and that depression, and they're going to wake up in the same vicious cycle every day thinking you're the crazy one. And as you break out of it, then you're going to cause more dissonance within them because they just see you as somebody who's spouting off this crazy nonsense, but your life's going to be getting better. But now they don't take you seriously, and now you're kind of like an outcast to your people and your peers who were once your friends. And once again, you just start the vicious cycle all over again, divide and conquer. And everywhere you look, there's division amongst us, whether it's Republican or Democrat, or it's red or blue, or it's black or white, up or down, left or right. And those are very basic, but every single place that we go, we've got so many choices, so many options, and our brains, I think, are just getting overloaded and overstimulated every single day. And the main contributing factor is those frequencies and not being able to discern what's actually being fed into you and what's leaving you. Um, I don't think enough people do daily affirmations. I think that if you really want to make something from your thoughts a reality, for example, if you are suffering from, let's just say something that's not too significant, but let's say at a basketball game, you're in high school and you were the point guard and you just botched a pass that could have won the game. Well, it's just a game. You're in high school, and it may not feel like that at that time if you ask a high schooler. I understand all of that stuff. But if you are just beating yourself up over it and you just, man, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, there's so much I could have done better, I would strongly urge you to just try forgiving yourself. I would urge you to meditate as to what you actually felt when you botched said pass or shot or whatnot. And to articulate that, that means going back to the feeling that you felt, which might be guilt, it might be shame, it might be all of the above, and being mentally strong enough and capable enough to sit there and ruminate on that, knowing that it doesn't have complete and total dominion over you and it's not going to be with you forever. And once you can get through that initial kind of just letting that feeling wash over you and feel it, and then realize that it wasn't that big of a deal, the feeling has come, and now that it's not that big a deal anymore and it's gone, you don't have to let it come back. Now, if it does come back, sure, we divide and conquer that one. It's kind of different when you use the divide and conquer against them. They probably don't like that. But that's what I mean is I think it's time we start fighting fire with fire. Um, I'm tired of seeing brothers and sisters suffer. I'm tired of seeing couples get into arguments over things that are rudimentary. I'm tired of going out in public and seeing people whisper things behind other people's backs and not say anything to other people in public. It's just, guys, you guys understand that even if you're not, excuse me, I think everyone on this planet is an intellectual in some way, shape, or form. But if you don't consider yourself an intellectual, I can break this down for you very rudimentary. We have a physical body as part of a trinity: our body, the flesh, our mind, our thoughts, our personalities, and our soul or our spirit. Those all are made from organs that comprise the flesh, brain being the one that connects to our higher self and spirit's thoughts, personality. And then if you break down all of those organs, well, they form because of your DNA, which is a hyperstrand of amino acids. Crazy. Yeah, that's all your DNA is. I forget the names of all of them, but they arrange in a sequence and they basically govern the entirety of what every cell in your body does. Cell being the next level of breakdown. And then if you break down cells, you get your particles, your atoms, your protons, neutrons, and electrons. If you guys know anything about science, or to make this as extremely basic as you can, every single thing that is made up in the universe, so anything that exists, even waves, okay, because we already discussed particles can become waves. Waves are particles, are interchangeable. I'm not sure if it goes back and forth. I don't want to misspeak. But all of those things are made by atoms. So this piano sitting here behind me, all of the books and paper that are sitting on that piano, the swords that are up there, my hat, my headset, your eyes, my beard, and the filaments that are inside of all of the hair that is growing out of my face is all comprised at the most basic level of atoms. And once you start looking up atoms, you find that atoms are actually made up of 99.99999 never-ending empty space. You could fit every single person you could fit every human in this entire planet, galaxy, whatever you want to call this, inside of a grain, excuse me, not a grain, instead of a sugar cube, if you were to just take all the empty space between all of our atoms out. And once you have this basic level of understanding of frequencies in the universe, you get to a point where your foundational understanding should come to the conclusion that we're all connected. And I want to articulate this point a lot. I'm going to speak on this here for just a second because I've seen videos such as people using words like singularity. I've even seen a video of a gentleman, and once again, this isn't to invalidate or make fun of anyone. I'm just sharing my knowledge. Okay, I saw a video of a young gentleman who went on Dr. Phil, who claimed that he was part of a robotic, sentient, singularity life form species, an organic robot essentially from the future, and he was channeling one of the entities through himself. However, this was not something as believable as like Bashar. If you guys have seen Bashar on TikTok, or you guys have looked up your own channels and stuff like that, this child seemed to be in such a weakened mental state that he was very, very easily wooable or manipulatable. Manipulatable. To the point where it had a direct result on not only his physical reality but his psychological reality. That's brainwashing, everyone. And while I do think that we are a part of a singularity to some extent, we would have to get further into the definition of words and articulations and whatnot for me to actually explain my specific mindset and belief when it comes to that, because it's very complex. And I think that once you get the foundation set for waves, particles, and the inner workings of our universe, it gets complex really fast. And that's because we're complex. If you think about your thoughts, like, where do they come from? You have a brain, and your brain works. Everyone knows that your brain works, because if your brain wasn't working, you wouldn't be watching my podcast or talking or doing whatever it is you're doing while I do my podcast. So even just that in and of itself is almost like a paradox, because it's a very simple statement to make. But when you think about the fact that we can do things like science or make podcasts and whatnot, you can apply that same analogy to a painting. A painting is proof of only one thing definitively, and that's that there is a painter. I can look at a painting, and if somebody puts a gun to my head and says, "You need to tell me one fact about this painting, you cannot be wrong or you'll die," I will say that a painter painted it, and you can never be wrong. So it's safe to say that when beautiful, beautiful, completely random, abstract things happen in nature, well, we already know through science that that doesn't happen often. And it doesn't even happen over millions of years, actually, at the rate that we think it does. We proved that. And Darwin actually discounted himself back whenever he was coming up with his theories, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to misspeak. But I believe I watched something and or read a book or something of that nature. That may have been a biography or a documentary of some sorts that basically said that he had disproven his own theories, but realized obviously that in disproving them, he wouldn't have the grounds for his theses and whatnot. And that's not to say that Darwin was wrong. I just think that the evolutions that he was speaking of happened on a much more micro level than a macro level. A perfect example is I saw a science and or study experiment of a race or group of monkeys, primates, that had just started spearfishing. Yeah, yeah. There's wild primates that have now just barely learned to fashion sharp sticks or sharp spears out of sticks, hang over small bodies of water or rivers in order to wait for fish to swim by them, articulate where they're going to move, lead them, and then kill them for the sake of food. And if you think about how long primates have been around and the fact that we're supposed to be evolved from them, the fact that we have smartphones that have the entire universe's knowledge in our pockets and they're just now learning how to hunt fish with stick spears, yeah, sorry, evolution. You lose that one 10 out of 10. I would say that's proof of a creator, a very smart, intelligent creator, compared to the evolutionary process. If that was the case, we should have fish that are walking around just like us, fish species, mermaids, if you will. And that's not to say mermaids aren't real. I don't think that. But according to evolution, they should be walking around with debit cards in their pockets, being able to enter and exit the water as mammals that can be obviously of land and of water. They should have gills and they should be able to breathe, whether it's in or out of water. Um, amphibious. Sorry, I don't know why I keep spacing my words tonight. But there's just inconsistencies that can't be proven. And I'm not going to bring up the thing that I think is a consistency because I don't want to offend anybody or preach anything. But I do just have to state that my belief system is that of a somewhat Christian view. And I only say somewhat in the sense that I would not define any of the words that you think I just used to define my belief system as you would define them. And that's going to be a very important aspect of this podcast going forward. If you guys ever hear anything you disagree with or anything of that nature, before you instantly write me off or something, just ask yourself, is there a way that what he said could have meant something than what he said? Obviously, I think it did, because if you think or disagree with me, I would say that not necessarily that you're wrong. Obviously, I'm not trying to say that I'm a know-it-all. I actually don't really claim to know anything, just to think stuff. But all of the other people that I've talked to as a control without any basis of knowledge or asking for an explanation or to articulate further, and that doesn't matter whether I'm talking to somebody who prefers being spoken to in layman's and or complexity, they kind of inherently just agree with me. And I mean inherently, like they just go, the usual response I get is yeah, that sounds right. And whenever I hear that, I don't even hear that sounds right. I hear my soul knows that's right, because that's kind of the feeling that I get whenever I have these profound thoughts and I go, I haven't done any research on this, but it's like I know in my heart and my soul that the thought that I just had is correct. And obviously I've been humbled more than a few times and proven wrong many a times, but pardon me. And being proven wrong and suffering is where we learn the most, because you never learn anything whenever you get it right on the first time through success. So, all of that being said, I hope that if anybody had any questions on frequencies or my understandings of frequencies and how they work and govern us, that answers them. And if not, I hope that you guys will be joining me next week. I'm going to end the podcast here in just a little bit. It's getting a little late, but I don't want to end it too soon because this is going to be my favorite part. I'm doing a giveaway next month for the spring equinox. So if you guys continue to watch my lives, I'm going to end up doing a live event on every Thursday. So this one was just on Wednesday to give you guys kind of the heads up. Wednesdays from now on will be whenever I record the actual podcast episodes, whether they be in an all audio, no video format, live, or pre-recorded. It's going to be up to my guests and how comfortable they are. being in front of a camera, or their voices, etc., so that I can be, what's the word? Respectful of their wishes. Goodness, starting on it was. It's time for bedtime. But I'm gonna do a giveaway. I'm gonna be asking questions and putting up polls on all of the episodes going forward for season 1. It's gonna be 10 or 11 episodes, and then we'll start season 2 after we're done with that. And season 2 is going to start next Wednesday. We'll do the first episode then. Hopefully, if I can find enough, I might just end up doing solo episodes to cover some foundational information for all my listeners. And then once we start season 2, we'll get into the real nitty gritty and some of the more niche topics that I cannot wait to talk about and get some of the guests on here. I've actually already got my guest for next week. He's one of my heroes and somebody who is going to change the world, whether it be with me, beside me, in front of me, behind me, however it works. We're going to do it together, all of us as one. Sooner or later, everybody will become united under one worldview. And that's not to say I have like an agenda or anything. It's just you guys can think about what I said earlier about divide and conquer. If you guys really want to get behind something and do something for the greatest good for everybody, including yourselves, it would be to find people that you can resonate with of like-mindedness after finding yourself. And I mean really finding yourself. Like, you need to figure out who you are down to a T. To the extent where I love anime. I wear anime stuff all the time. I'm adorned in it. I'm practicing Aido, and I carry around a sword everywhere that I go. I have a stand-up acoustic piano in my bedroom with a small collection of books, as well as some art. There's just stuff that I've come to know over my 30 years existing in this world that I truly love. And I strongly recommend that you guys do the same. And I mean truly love as well. Don't keep your pair of shoes, for example, because you have 300 of them, male or female, because they're last seasons and they're still worth something. That's a materialistic view, and that's not to say you are materialistic. But if you don't love it and you just like it because you paid a lot of money for it, you should probably just donate it. Give it to a good cause because you don't need it. The stuff that you will come to love and you will know that you love, it's not so much materialistic or selfish, in my opinion, when you collect these things, because you're kind of putting your energy or your waves into them, and it's not so much that they're a thing, they kind of become a part of you. And without them, you just don't feel whole. And then that adds the sentimental value. And even if you have something sentimental that costs a lot, its sentimental value is going to be worth way more to you than the actual monetary value. So I just strongly urge anyone out there who may have some friends that they're fake or two-faced with, and that's okay. I use these words freely now. You should too. If you're being fake or two-faced, and you say, "Well, I'm not. I don't mean it. It's not even fake or two-faced because my heart's in a good place," you could still be right, but you need to call stuff what it is. If you're being two-faced, you're being two-faced. Apologize, acknowledge you're being two-faced, and try to do better. It's in the past. You can't change it. There's nothing you can do. And you're going to be guilt-ridden and ridden with anxiety, thinking about all of the ways that you should have done better. It's a horrible, vicious cycle to be in. I was stuck there for 30 years. I don't even want to get started on the topics that we're going to have to talk about in the future on this podcast because they stem from thoughts like that. With all of that being said, I can't stress this enough, you guys. Learn some frequencies. See if you can find your resonant ones. See if you can figure out what music and songs really turn you on or turn you off. And I don't mean like that. Just find some stuff that resonates with you and start focusing your intents from a place of love, from a place of family, from a place of happiness. And I mean pure blissful infatuation. As much love as you can find. If you haven't done something that, if you've only driven Toyotas your whole life and you've never driven a Ford, then you need to go drive a Ford. I don't care if you buy it or borrow it. Figure something out, because you don't know, you might love Fords more than Toyotas. It's one of those don't knock until you try things. So just make sure that you guys are doing your best out there to try and find that stuff you love. I know everybody works and is still tied into the matrix, much like I still am in some way, shapes, and forms as well. But let's break out of it. Let's unite. Let's stop all of this hatred, all of this buffoonery, all of this back and forth, all of the stuff that's going on now that's quite literally, in my opinion, could lead to bloodshed. Look at Russia, look at Ukraine. Just, there's so much going on in this world. We don't need to be adding to the problem. We need to be fixing it. And to fix it, we got to start talking about it. And that's why I started Frequency and Rain. So with that being said, you guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this live. I've got a guest speaker coming tomorrow. We're going to talk about sexual energy transmigration. which is basically taking the energy that you would normally expel through a sexual encounter, whether it be solo or with a friend, giggity. And instead of even partaking in either of those things, sexual energy is some of the strongest energy that you can find in this universe. And if you can withhold from the urge to do that, whether it be a male or female, you'll come to find that you can actually channel that life force or that energy into things that are very productive for you, whether it be work, whether it be exercise, whether it be healing, all of the above. And then you incorporate that with an understanding of frequencies, grounding whenever you get overstimulated to get rid of all of the pent up electric charges that you've acquired during the day. Just these three simple things and aspects can quite literally be life changing. Um, you'll see the effects for yourself. I don't want to get into any of the specifics just yet. I already have actually a couple of times whenever I slipped in my pre-recorded podcast episodes. But I hope you guys enjoyed this format. If you guys watched this, let me know what you guys thought of the live video recording. I know it took a little bit of time. It definitely took a little bit of brain power in order to get all of this sorted out. I was incredibly late whenever I started this. So hopefully we'll be on time next week. We'll definitely be on time tomorrow. Once again, you guys, I have a special guest who's going to be coming in next week. One of my heroes. I can't wait for you guys to meet him and hear his opinion on stuff. And then don't forget, Spring Equinox, I have a giveaway that's going on. I'll be posting polls and whatnot through these. I'll be looking for interactions, comments, post your responses to the polls. Comment on all my stuff, like, share, and I don't know whether it's going to be like a like, share type thing or pick my favorite comment, etc. But in some way, shape, or form, come March 19th is the Spring Equinox. I'm going to pick a winner, and they're going to win a book from my incredible collection on my library. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your night. I've got to be up incredibly early in the morning to get some gluten-free stuff. Catch you next week. See you in rain. Deuces.
Frequency and rain.